Good morning, everyone. This is Anushri from People Matters, and we are back with another exciting session of a webcast in partnership with Oracle on the topic How to Get Ready for an Augmented Workplace, the role of HR technology in an organization's transformation. So, before moving to our agenda of the day, let me give you a brief of the topic. With emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, and blockchain, these technologies are becoming commonplace in HR processes. Work is getting transformed. So is the composition of the workforce with employees, gig workers, bots, and robots. Organizations that are at the forefront of addressing these transformations are not just reconceptualizing work, they are reskilling their workforce and using technology solutions to support business processes. In this webinar, you will learn about the key shifts that are re engineering work, learn about how companies are addressing their short and long term goals, and how to align your strategy with right technology partner. So, in this webcast, the four themes that we are going to cover are what are the key characteristics of an augmented workforce? How is the role of HR professionals going to change? What are some of the key HR imperatives that you should know about? And what are the steps that leads companies across sectors engaged in? Now, let me introduce you all to the speakers for this webcast. So we have the privilege of having with us Mr. Sudhakar Buddharaju, Head HR Energy Business at Adani Group. Mr. Sudhakar is a management graduate from IMT Ghaziabad and has over 30 years of experience in multiple sectors. During his experience, he has led functions like HR strategy, sales, ERP, SCM, IT, business excellence, quality, CSR, KM, communication, L&D, EHS, sustainability, apart from being a business head having P&L responsibility. We have also Ms. Srividya Sabapati, Senior Director, HCM, Sales Consulting, Oracle. With 20 rich years of experience, Srividya drives the solution for cloud applications and on-premise HCM applications encompassing core HR and talent management, mapping customer business processes to the application, engaging value propositions, post-sales customer references, etc. are an integral part of her responsibility. She was managing ERP, HCM, and CX applications for the western regions of India. Our partner for today's webcast is Oracle. Oracle is shifting the complexity from IT, moving it out of the enterprise by engineering hardware and software to work together in the cloud and in the data center. In India, Oracle works with more than 7,000 customers and over 600 partners across the private, public, and government sectors. Oracle has been in India for over 25 years. About 3,15,000 students and more than 1,100 learning institutions benefit from the Oracle Academy program annually in India. We have saved time for you to ask your questions at the end of the webcast. For those who are live, can simply submit or post questions at any time during session. We'll try to respond to as many questions as time allows. So we have an exciting topic to discuss in this webcast today. So without any further delay, let me invite Sri Vidya to take over. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for spending time on a Friday morning to attend this webinar. And thank you Sudhakar for joining us in this webinar. So let me quickly, without further ado, start off. So we are talking about getting ready for an augmented workforce. I'm sure, all of us are experiencing this change. Our world is changing quite rapidly. And the technology changes that have been happening over the few years have been quite radical. And all of us have been witness to this technology changes. Now, what is most interesting is the changes in technology are also slowly impacting the adoption of technology at different workplaces, and what is the kind of impact it is having on the workforce and also on the organizations. So while we have seen how technology has changed in the way business is being driven, we are also seeing how technology has impacted the way we lead our lives. And these changes are also impacting the infrastructure. So for example, a lot of us have this flexibility of either working from home, or we can do a mobile working. We work from different places in the in a geography. We coordinate with several people in the organization, whether they are from the same place or from somewhere else. So the infrastructure that is required to make this mobile workforce working also needs to undergo a change. And I think all the organizations are slowly recognizing that while technology changes, there are other things also along with technology which needs to keep moving in the similar pace. Now, while we're talking about the technology and the infrastructure, obviously the opportunities also are slowly evolving. Earlier, we had people, in large cities, tier one cities, who are actually witnessing these changes in opportunities and the kind of opportunities, and were actually recipient of a lot of benefits of these evolving technologies. But slowly, we are realizing that these changes, these transformations are also impacting people in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And when we talk about a mobile workforce, when we're talking about flexibility in working, when we're talking about outsourcing, these are the areas also where it is giving rise to a lot of opportunities to people there. And the aspirations of people are also slowly undergoing a change, because one is, we are also seeing what is called as the emergence of a gig economy, where employees are no longer interested in permanent jobs or being associated with an organization for a very long time. They would like to pursue smaller opportunities which are actually aligned to their business objectives or their life goals, their passion, and they would like to undertake small projects with organizations for a small period of time, for a short duration of time, and then move on. So what we are trying to see is that work fulfillment, career aspirations, career fulfillment, etc., is undergoing a change for millennials, for the employees of today. And obviously, even organizations have to keep pace with these changes, and they also have to keep changing the way they are going to deal with people. So what does it mean? The workplace is changing. Okay, and this workplace is not just digital, it's also augmented. Now, what do we mean by augmented workplace or an augmented workforce? This is something where, people and machines are working together, blending together to actually come out with the desired output. So while we have people who are smart because they are using smart devices, there are devices which are helping us. Even, for example, even if we take a look at our mobile phones today, it is no longer a phone which is only used for the purpose of calling people. It is, a device which all of us would like to have because it has got a camera, it takes pictures, and, the technology in terms of capturing moments are also improving on a phone. It is used for collaboration. It is used for messaging. It is used for mails. So it is one device in the hand which is actually helping us in our workplace. It is helping us enhance our work and our personal lives. So it's basically something which is changing the way we work. Actually, today a lot of us do a lot of chats and conversations and messaging and important business discussions also on a WhatsApp message. Similarly, machines are automating. So today we're talking about machine learning. We're talking about a lot of devices that will help you do your work. For example, there's a lot of chatter around robotics, which is probably going to help you do your recruiting for jobs that for skills that don't require too much of qualitative parameters. Probably you can automate those jobs and leave the humans for much more intelligent tasks and more value added activities. So we are talking about, when we're talking about technology in terms of artificial intelligence, we're talking of adaptive intelligence, we're talking of all of those things. These are what is helping the business actually come out with better insights, understand what is happening in the world, figure out what are the benchmarks that are available and how are you comparing yourself with these benchmarks, and therefore what are the predictions that come along with it. How is it, how is the business going to change, or is there something which requires your attention? So all of this is something which technology is helping us in our day-to-day lives. So while we talk about the augmented workplace, we are also talking about what has happened today. There was a PwC survey which actually said that there are certain jobs which are getting replaced, around say 12% of jobs which are getting replaced today. There are 13% of jobs which are getting created. So you're inventing new kinds of jobs. So while we say that certain jobs are becoming redundant because of the advent of technology, because of the advent of machine learning or robotics, etc., there are parallelly a different set of jobs that are getting created. And 75% of the jobs are actually getting enhanced because people who are doing mundane tasks in the past probably are doing a different task today because technology has changed the workplace. Technology has changed the way we work. It has given us a lot of insights and intelligence to work with, and therefore our job profile, what we are doing, what is the value we are bringing to the table, has gone up. So, what do we identify as a specific characteristic or a trait of an augmented workforce? The first thing is purpose and passion. So today you find a lot of millennials who are very driven by their own purpose. People also look at organizations and look at what are the values and culture that they carry and whether they align with your own individual objectives, because it is a passion, it is a passion that drives the people to work. And this is exactly what an organization would like to carry itself as a strategic differentiator in the workplace, because the more committed and passionate workforce you have, the better is going to be the productivity and better is going to be the output. Now, management and moving up. See, today we find that a person who was earlier, the aspiration of a person used to be like, once I spend around 20-25 years in an organization, maybe I would reach the top echelons of an organization or the top management ladder. Whereas today, you find people in their early 30s, in the 40s, even with 10 and 15 years of experience, who are aiming to be a CEO of a company, who are aiming to be the MD of a company. And therefore, the aspirations have gone up. Secondly, the pace at which people are growing within an organization has gone up. And therefore, the expectations are different.
Srividya?
Collaboration today, the way people work with one another, you have a virtual team concept, you have people working out of different areas, not necessarily within the same location, and working together towards a common goal and a common purpose. So definitely, if you have people working from different areas, you have technology enabling them to work together, and better tools and better collaborative tools to help them. And certainly we are all the time looking at how flexible we can be, and because everybody's high point of productivity could be different, and therefore the flexibility of either working from home, working from an alternate location, working from the workplace, flexibility in terms of timings, all of this actually contribute to an augmented workforce. So here, Sudhakar, I would like to take a pause here from the augmented workforce and find out what are your perspectives on the augmented workforce in your organization, and also from us, I would like to I would request you to throw a highlight on how the industry is working today in terms of augmented workforce.
Thank you, Srividya. See, if you look at this augmented workforce, I think the context setting is extremely important in this. I was just going through a lot of research that has been done in this area, and what are the key themes that are coming across. There are four themes that we are watching today from our point of view. One is, I think, there is a lot of optimism and hope going forward that as the economy flourishes, the focus on employees working on for a sense of purpose and meaning making is far more important than the corporate hierarchy or designations and all that. And these workforce will chase relevance. Even today, if you look at experiential learning, people talk about relevancy oriented adults. Even when we're talking about millennials, we're exactly saying the same thing, saying that they will chase relevance. They want centrality. And I think as economy flourishes, and if you really contrast it with the way civilizations have grown over a period of time, the artisans, the art, architecture, fine arts, all these things will flourish. And this would have an impact on the way the business will be run. Because you will find a lot of small companies reaching worldwide markets on one side, and you will find that time to work blurs. People would look at very short-term assignments so that they have reasonable amount of time to focus on their personal interests and their societal requirements and family commitments. So I think the workforce would relook at in terms of time to work. And one thing that we definitely see is that the corporate, the government, and the NGOs would start working in a congruence. So I think that would be a very major thing that would come up. And the second thing, that dimension that we see is that innovation as a dimension would come through, and innovation will definitely outpace the regulation. You would find a lot of non-permanent employees in the organization. Possibly the permanent full-time employees will be less than 9%, less than 10%. And you would find that university degrees do not matter. People who come with certain capabilities would be looked at, and not their pedigree from which institution and what kind of academic qualification they come in. So there will be a lot of focus on getting skills and competencies and certifications rather than formal university degrees. But they will be so niche in its content that it has a great value for organizations. And so we also need to relook at our recruitment policies, our selection criteria, to ensure that we're able to manage that particular change in the way people are looking at. You would find the focus would go a lot on the outcome assurance than result focus. So I think that's a very important thing to look at. And the third dimension that we see is that corporatization will take a very, very big leap. And we find that corporates will become bigger and bigger, and customer choice will dominate in the marketplace. And corporates, you will find, taking more and more responsibility and lead in the area of health and education, which today happens to be in the space of the government. So there is a certain amount of blurring that would happen. And you will find that HR will focus on science of human capital. I think the whole focus of HR would move to understanding and building capabilities on the science of human capital. I think that's going to be a big issue. And gig workers would actually get into what we call as a call-up contracts. And if I can use the word little loosely, technology terrorism will gain ground. Things will actually get impacted. And one fourth dimension, which I see is very, very unique, that is going to happen going forward, is the dimension of femininity, as I call it. I think the whole focus would be on the climate and the sustainability. And you'd find that there will be a lot of congruence between economy, ecology, and community initiatives that would happen. I think that congruence would really make corporates look at the world very differently, and the NGOs looking at differently, the government looking at differently, the academic institutions looking at differently. I think that's going to be a very, very major change that would happen. And ethics becomes very important core. And HR would be focusing a lot more on the virtual social networks kind of stuff. One important thing that would happen is the stop the bot kind of marches will begin. I think the trade unions will start looking at it differently. Some of the young workforce would also look at it differently, and they may actually get into these kind of stop the bots marches. If I could look at it from a social point of view. So some of these changes could happen, and it would have a deep impact on the way the HR would be looked at going forward, and the expectations of management with respect to HR would change significantly.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Sudhakar. I think you made a very pertinent point on the expectations of HR is going to be changing, because we also see a paradigm shift in what HR is doing today, vis-a-vis what it was the role that HR was playing in the past. And one very interesting point which you brought up was HR has become a science of human capital. So if you look at the statistics, we see that 79% of CEOs have CHR as a direct reporting now. Okay, this has been a shift, and I think one of the reasons is with increasingly a lot of competition and a lot of awareness among organizations. They realize that innovation is one thing which is the only thing probably which is going to make them sustainable, and therefore and innovation calls for the right talent. So it is very important to encourage people to sit back and not be constrained by the shackles of certain structure and ways of working, and give freedom to the way they want to innovate. And that also should provide them an environment of enablement and empowerment. And definitely there's no dearth of opportunities. So when we talk of organizations and how they're going to manage their talent, one thing that keeps coming up all the time is how the talent, like while the organization can provide the infrastructure, can provide the environment for a talent to flourish, how the talent can also help the organization to grow. It is a right talent which an organization can harness, through either talent acquisition and attracting the right kind of talent, which will go a long way in moving the whole organization forward, basis the innovative methods and innovation that we can bring into the market. And of course, organizations are also not static. They are also evolving and dynamic all the time, and therefore every growth and every diversification that you do requires the right talent to drive those strategic initiatives. And that is the reason why you keep on finding organizations pursuing the succession planning route to identify the right talent, so that they can actually place the right talent in the right roles, which will help them not only encourage growth, but also manage the technological disruption without much disruptions in their operations. So I think expectations from HR are also rising in that sense. It's no longer those mundane administrative tasks. And what we hear from CHROs across India is that technology disruptions are a given today. Okay, so that is something which is happening on a daily basis, and every day you open the newspaper or you look at social media and you find something new that is coming up. So it is how we are going to work with that. Secondly, challenging business models. Like I think a few years ago, one would never have thought that you would have a Flipkart or an Amazon ruling the roost today. Business models have changed. The way people are doing business today has completely undergone a change, and therefore even organizations have to actually keep pace with this, and that is where they lean to the CHRO to hire the right talent to bring about this change within the organizations also. Now, one thing that is always plaguing all organizations is whether do we have the right talent. Today we are already having people who are working with us, and with the changing external environment, with the changing business dynamics, is there any synchronization between the talent we have, the skill we have, and what is required for growth? So, are we attracting the right talent? Do we have the right culture to attract the talent? Are we clear about what we want? Are we futuristic? Can we think ahead? Can we innovate? And that is one of the things. Attracting talent is one of the things. The second is, do we have the organizational agility? Can we move quickly as an organization to meet these changes, to handle these changes? So these are some of the things I think the CHROs in the country are also grappling with, are actually thinking about it, pondering over it, because while so many things keep changing in the industry, in business, one thing which is very important is how do you work within these compliances too. There are a lot of compliances that we need to meet as an organization, as a business, and we should never come to a stage where there's a conflict between compliance and growth. So these are the things which CHROs today are grappling with. So Sudhakar, what is your experience in terms of what is the expectation that your group has from a CHRO, or the CHROs of the different companies within the group? Have these expectations changed either from the senior management or from the employees? Can you throw some light on that?
See, if you look at this expectations, I think there is some part of the expectations that have remained consistent. There are certain expectations that have changed. If you look at one consistent expectation that they have been having and they continue to have, and even today they talk about, is how does HR release quality management time of the leadership to ensure that they focus on the human connectivity within the organization? How do we actually make them available to the rest of the organization? because these leaders tend to outgrow the organization they build very fast. So how do we actually make them available to the rest of the organization is a very major challenge, and that continues to be a demand on the HR team, and it is still there today. And the second thing that they would also consistently talk about is, are you going to really focus on building people, processes, systems, uh, and policies that will help or augment sustainability and institution building agenda. See, what is the key thing that today they're expecting is, what is the focus that you have to ensure that the workforce is aligned to the larger superordination dimension for the organization? How do they grow beyond what their current business or current function or the department talking about? How do we actually build a company of the future? So what is it that we need to do to make it happen is the issue that is coming up. So the whole focus is on how do you build an organization that is future ready and sustainable. Is a very, very important dimension. And one of the things that we've been talking about is uh, building capabilities of managers to have meaningful and relevant conversations. That itself is a very, very critical piece, because there are multiple situations are happening. There are a lot of changes that are happening because of technology and non because of technology as well. But how do managers develop capabilities to have difficult and different kind of conversations with their team members? And one of the key expectation is, you focus on use technology, focus on analytics and database decision making, keep the flow rate of the talent pipeline in the organization, both from internal point of view and the external point of view. So we're focusing a lot more on 80-20 basis, like 80% of our internal talent should be upskilled, trained, developed to handle leadership and critical positions going forward, and only 20% should come who are coming to help our new businesses or people coming with very unique skill sets that we don't have at this point of time, which are extremely important to set up the business kind of stuff. Otherwise, the whole focus is on talent management, development, succession planning within the organization, because we have critical mass of people in the organization. It's an investment on them that makes a big difference. So that's where they want HR to use the technology to take the operations out of the technology, and they want HR leaders to actually focus on institution and organization building agenda and making the organizations future ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very, very well said. I think exactly sums up what you're saying. How the HR's role in how to build organizations that can survive the disruptions. Because today you're saying you were mentioning about how one of the roles that the organization has is to keep upskilling and training their people so that they are moving they are moving ahead, and they are overcoming the existing constraints, and building an organization that can actually survive the disruptions, because disruptions are happening constantly, and we are also having technological disruptions which are actually enabling. So how do we make use of, how do you leverage the technological disruptions, manage the business disruptions to grow? So this entire process I can call is a transformation that is happening within the organization, because obviously we're talking about technological disruptions, we're talking about changing business models, we are talking about skills that are undergoing a change, we're talking about relevance of the skills to the business requirements and dynamic market conditions. So this obviously requires what we call as a transformation internally. Like we speak about internal transformation of our body, it is similarly how the external changes forces our organization also to undergo a change. So when we talk of this evolution, this transformation, so what is it that we are talking about from an organization standpoint? Transformation of mindset, because there are people who are working in the organization who are constantly facing disruptions. Because if you look at the way an IT department also has been functioning over the past so many years, you can see the change. Earlier, it was MIS department it used to be christened as MIS. It used to be a back office function, and so on. But today, if you look at it, IT plays a very critical role in the business functioning itself. If you look at any of the startups, it's the IT which is actually creating that platform for them to run their business. So it's completely changed. The mindset has changed. The way people are working has changed. So while there have been disruptions, one of the things that everybody has to understand also is how you also need to be compliant. So within the framework of disruptions, you also need to be sure that you're following the rules, the processes, and the loss of the land. Second is, what is the culture? When we keep having these changes within every organization, right? People also are resistant to change, so they don't trust. They don't trust what is thrust upon them. So it's very important for the management, for the HR, for the organization to play a critical role in making people comfortable with this change. Encouraging an environment of trust, and at the same time, be very vigilant of what are the changes in the processes. Be very vigilant and aware of what is happening in the world around you, and what is expected out of you also. Now, obviously, to manage the change, you need to have the processes in place, and we suddenly realize that these processes keep changing rapidly. What was probably something, what was a given a few years ago is no longer so today. Today, you set up a process which is probably complying or meeting the requirements of a particular business model as on date, and after a couple of years, you will realize that there's a new business model which is taking over, and therefore you again have to change the process. So you need to create the process which are very agile and flexible, and which are amenable to change quickly. And of course, technology that is helping you to put your process quickly, change your processes quickly, and also making the whole business more meaningful. So in terms of business intelligence, in terms of how intuitive the technology has made your life, how easy it is to run your processes, that's where technology plays a very critical role. And also with disruptions in technology, it's very easy to make predictions, to go through what are scenarios, to actually paint a picture of a future today and figure out how you're going to be playing a role there. And how your business is going to be playing a role there, how relevant you're going to be. So, Sudhakar, in your organization also, you are undergoing a transformation currently, and obviously, yours is a large group, large organization with multiple businesses. How are you harnessing your people, one, to technology, to drive this change?
Yeah. What we are doing is largely we're focusing on a social tech approach. So we're trying to manage a combination of the soft and the hard part of it in terms of organizational transformation agenda. See, on the hard part, it's the whole thing around technology. What would happen in an organization if we have to actually handle these changes? So one thing that we've created today is we created 3 centers of excellence. One is on technology, another is on strategy and innovation, and third thing on analytics. So these are the 3 centers of excellence that would actually be working very closely with the CEOs and the businesses to ensure that the organization is ready from the future readiness point of view on these dimensions. So they're working together. We're building very strong teams there. We're actually moving a lot of people from internal organization to those groups. We're also getting some specialists from there outside, and we are creating these centers. And they said they need to work very closely with very specific agendas, very specific 2-3 issues for each one of the businesses, something that would very deeply impact and change the way the organization is working. So whether we're talking about a common technology platform, where would have the security platforms, mobility platforms, network platforms, IoT platforms, big data platforms, or analytics platform, or any emerging technology like your 3D printing or whatever kind of stuff, getting all those things into one single platform, and ensuring that the businesses are prepared to make use of these technology platforms in a very effective and in a very competitive manner. So that one piece that we're doing, but at the same time, this will never give a result if you don't prepare the organization from the softer part. And I think that's where HR does a very major role. And the way what we're looking at is to ensure that the social dimension of the social tech intervention is happening. We decided if we have to look at these mindset changes, if we look at these attitude changes, if you look at working style changes, it's extremely important to build a critical mass of people, employees, who would actually take this change management forward and who actually will make the change happen on the ground. So we decided it's extremely important to till the soil and sow the seeds before you actually expect the fruits to come from a tree. So it's what we have done is in the last, say, for instance, 1.5 years or so, we had exposed more than 700 in energy business, more than 700 managers. through labs. We had these managers going through labs where they were getting exposed to appreciative inquiry and the achievement motivation dimension, and the whole dimension of empathy on one side. So we're saying it's extremely important that we have these people looking at this with a very positive mindset, that they should not look at these technology changes from a threatening mindset or a victim mindset, but it's extremely important that they look at it from a position of saying that, boss, we are masters of this technology, we'll run this technology, we'll use this technology, we'll make a difference in the organization, keep using that technology. So getting these critical mass is very, very important. So we've been extensively thoughtful in getting these 700 odd managers exposed to these labs. And now we've also trained a lot of people within these 700 managers who are now taking it to the rest of the organizations and actually simulating it. So there is a common language, there's a common mindset, looking at change from a positive mindset. So preparing this organization for a change is very, very important. Because what we have seen is technology was never a failure. Technology is always relevant, so long as you know how to use it. Because even if you look at from the augmented reality point of view, people say that it's so important that the person who is designing the algorithms should be knowing how the machine should run. So if this person doesn't have the skill set and the life experiences, he will not be in a position to create a right algorithm for the machines or the robots or the bots to actually handle that issue. So it's extremely important in terms of preparing this. So one of the key things that we're also doing is for all the HR people, saying that it's extremely important that you develop process skills. Today they're very much onto the accreditations, especially the specialization, whether it is related to L&D or whether it is behavioral based interviewing or competency based interviewing or skill based interviewing or whatever. So they're getting certifications, accreditations in that lane. But now we're saying it's extremely important that you develop process skills within HR teams to ensure that this change happens in a very calculated manner and in a very mindful and thoughtful manner. So the whole issue of the business model changing, the financial models changing, the customer interface models changing, all these things could happen. But how do you prepare the organization to manage these changes and look at it with a sense of joy, with a sense of anticipation, with a sense of fun is very important to develop. And that's where the whole issue of the socio part of the socio-tech intervention becomes very important. So the way we are looking at this transformation is we're looking at this as an opportunity for us to look at it in a very different manner and prepare the organization well. So as this technology, there's a very serious work that is happening on the technology side on the one side. We're preparing the organization for it. At some point of time, we'll actually do the coupling. And that's a time when we actually give access of this, a lot of these technologies to the employees, and they will be in a position to handle it in a much more prepared manner. Like say, for instance, we're looking at analytics, for instance. We're looking at what part of baseline data that we need to create today if we are to do a very meaningful analytics tomorrow. If I have to link it to the sociographic profile, if I want to link it to the psychographic profile, or if I want to link it to the interest group profile of employees, how do we do this? So what kind of data that I need to capture right now so that I create a baseline, and as the technologies and as new technology implementations keeps happening, as social collaborative tools come into handy, we are prepared to use them in a much more organized manner. So this is a very important preparatory piece that we really need to do. And in my view, if you do this preparation well, and if you get the critical mass of employees aligned to this thought process well, I think technology will be used to our competitive advantage. Otherwise, we'll actually be burdened by technology trying to understand and grasp it rather than actually using the technology for creating competitive advantage for the organization. So we are positioning technology from a competitive advantage point of view. We're positioning this acculturization towards us as another competitive advantage, and we're saying, boss, these two together should make a difference to the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sudhakar, with you touched upon people, you touched upon process, and you touched upon technology. How the blend of all the three are actually helping you to move from to do the transformation within your organization. Right. So now, how do you paint the vision? Often, the what do you call the healthy blend of technology and human being within the organization to elevate the organization to the next level. So how do you paint this picture to the workforce in terms of communication, and what are the things that you are doing within the organization for the better talent engagement and communication of this vision? Because obviously, being one of the largest business houses in the country, definitely you must be having a strategy to manage this.
Yeah. See, as a group, we've been growing at a very, very heavy pace. The critical thing that we are focusing on is how do we manage growth and consolidation at the same time. I think that's a very, very important dimension for us. And so what we're looking at is, what kind of culture will help us manage this? What kind of leadership capability will help us in managing this? What kind of managerial abilities that we need to create in the organizations to ensure that we are able to manage this? And what kind of uh, skill set that we need to have to manage some of the dilemmas that come in the way as we try to handle this. Like, say, for instance, very important thing is, as we're talking about these millennials coming in and are we talking about these millennials demanding certain work environments, uh, how do we prepare the organization to manage the needs of the millennials on one side, and at the same time we need to bring in certain amount of organization discipline at the same time and ensure that there is a fine balance and both are able to work with each other in a very smooth manner. So multiple generation employees are going to be there. So we have 5 6 generation of employees who will be working together in the same workspace. So how do we ensure that we balance between the organization culture that we want at a group level on one side, and also we should talk about a team level culture that we need to build. Like, say, some of the things that the other day we were discussing is, in our sourcing strategy we said if we have to actually create a cross functional team to work on something, or a special project team to work on some specific assignment, or we want a particular initiative to be driven in a very structured manner in a particular period of time, how do we define the membership of people to that cross-functional team or this? So we said, can we look at some of the things? Earlier, we used to think only in terms of saying, what kind of skill sets, what kind of complementary skill sets. Now we're also looking at what are the kind of interest groups. How many bikers are there? How many trekkers are there? How many guys who are wanting to work with spastic children in the volunteering? We're looking at those interest groups and trying to get people with the similar interest groups to come in together. It has a totally different way of looking at life. Because in that team, if they want to take a break out, they know they just go on a bike and all the 10 guys disappear for the weekend on the biking all over the place. But that bonding, that particular thing has a very different value in that particular team. So this is an attempt to which we need to seriously look at how do we manage. And one thing that is coming very clearly to us, a message coming to us very clearly is the need to give centrality to each employee in his own or her own way. I think that's a big struggle. How do you ensure that every employee, while he's doing a different roles in the organization, how do you find that centrality for that employee? So what kind of reward mechanisms, what kind of recognition mechanism, what kind of visibility that you need to provide to them, what kind of investment do you do into that is a very, very big thing. And that's where we want to use this technology to our benefit, so that if we're able to capture a variety of things that have happened in the past with that employee, which we don't have access to at this point of time, and if we're able to create the database and start working on this, then the kind of analytics we can do and the kind of correlations and algorithms that we can run in terms of social or the psychographic dimension with the kind of experiences the fellow has in the organization or the kind of interest that he has. I think it's a very, very evolving field, and I think it's a very, very interesting field, and there's a lot of fun around this. I think that's possibly what would really make HR guys really look at it, because after a long time, I'm seeing fun coming back to the function. So there's a lot of these, very creative, very, very right-brainish activities that are coming into the fold of the HR. And I think that's exactly what we should do more of.
Oh yes, thank you so much, Dakar. I think you have very well articulated, why the group is successful. Because the way you are using your people, the most valuable resources, and the kind of engagement initiatives you are undertaking, I think that is the secret of success, and that is why you are marching ahead. So thank you so much, Dakar, and thank you all of you for being here. And any questions that you have, you're open to take them.
Yeah. So thank you, Sudhakar and Srividya, for your great insights. So we are now moving towards the question for which are from our attendees. So the first question is from Vedjanti. So there are two parts of this question. So she asks, with all these flex time options in the work, do you think that 9 to 5 jobs will be out of fashion?
Um, See, I think today 9 to 5 jobs are already out of fashion. So if you ask me, all of us are always all the time doing flexi timings. So the organizations which really recognize the value add that an individual gives to the work is basically the time when he's completely on the work. Okay, and I think today. Other than those jobs where you really need to be on your desk, I think most organizations have made it flexi time.
The other part of this question, she's also asking that how can an HR accurately monitor a workforce that always work from home and where human interaction is so important in customer centric businesses.
Okay, so I'll just do one part of it, and I'll ask Sudhakar to do from the industry standpoint. So one of the things which I see organizations increasingly doing is an outcome based result. Okay, an outcome based work. So if I have certain deliverables which are defined, it doesn't matter whether I'm working at 3 in the morning or whether I'm working at 10 in the night. So what is most important is I have a deadline and I am meeting the deadline. I am able to contribute effectively to the organization, and also Sudhakar also mentioned something on customer interface and how customer choice is actually driving a lot of processes and businesses. That's what makes a difference. I think if once you align your key performance parameters, I think the rest of it can fall in place with a proper process that you put in place.
Yeah, I would like to add this with you just on a couple of things here. Because see, I think this is a question which would be answered very differently from different industry point of view.
Right.
If you look at services business sector, it has a different connotation. If you look at IT enabled services, BPO segment, it has a different connotation. But if you look at manufacturing organizations, it has a different connotation because you are having a 24/7 manufacturing operation going on. So the issue is, how flexible the flexi hours would be. So these kind of challenges would come in. But what is becoming very important today in organizations is, I think more than the flexi hours, I think they're talking about the productive time that is spent in the organization. So long as you're productive, which you refer to as the outcome-based thinking, I think it's becoming very, very, very strong and slowly settling in most of the organizations, especially in the corporate offices. In the manufacturing plants, I would still see maybe this 18 to 3 hours, 3 shifts may become 16 to 4 shifts. Maybe God only knows how it shaped over a period of time. But the shifts would continue, the time bound would continue. But what would happen is, for people who are working in the offices and all that, the whole issue of looking at how predictive my productivity is going to become more important. That's where technology will come in very handy. Technology can throw in a lot of these things and give me a predictive tool saying that this guy is likely to be productive on based on ABCDE that we provide as an organization. I think that will become much more important. I think that's how things would change. And my view is, as far as a customer issue is concerned, I think you cannot compromise on what customer wants. If the customer is going to demand a personal touch, so be it, it would happen. Because ultimately, this human touch of chemistry between the service provider and the customer is what is going to determine your long-term sustenance in the business. So this would continue to happen, whether it is HR with the employee, or whether it is the leader with the employee, or whether it is a manager with his immediate team members. Anywhere you take it, this particular human touch of chemistry has to continue, and it will continue. The issue is the flexibility that the employees have is a contractual agreement, if I can use a word going forward, between the employer and employee. But as you have more part-time employees coming in, more gig workers coming in, the whole issue would change to this. See, today, the careers are managed by the organizations, correct? That's what we think as HR. But going forward, the employees will choose what their career path will be. So the whole ownership is shifting to that particular person. So if the employee feels it's very relevant and this experience in this organization is going to be relevant to him or her, the person will chase that. Otherwise, it would not. He will not. That's how I see it.
Also, one more point I wanted to highlight here is when we talk about augmented workforce, we talk about a blend of technology and human being, right? So, how much of a technology grows or how much of a technology invades into our space, it cannot replace the human relationships. So, there are certain things which are a given and which is something which we will have to do. Therefore, the value added services actually undergo a change compared to what it has been done today. So the flexibility will come in terms of the procedure, probably the process, but there will not be any flexibility in customer satisfaction, or there will not be any flexibility, in deciding whether you want a customer delight. That is a given. How you go about doing it is what you can use technology to enable you. Maybe you can do your back office work at home, or you can do it anywhere, but there are certain things which cannot be replaced.
Very well. So the another question is from Pooja, where she's asking, how should HR prepare for a more flexible workforce? Also, she adds, with the advent of gig workforce, will gig workforce retention will be a major issue? How should we deal with that?
Sudhakar, I think you should be.
Yeah. See, I think, the way going forward, there are employees who are going to come with very specialized skill sets. And because they have the specialized skill sets, they would have the flexibility to decide how much time they want to give to which organization. And I think the issue of managing their skill set and it's okay. Let me give a very simple example before I get into a little technical issue. Today, also, we have a lot of these third-party guys who are working in our organizations, right? Now, how much of management time or organizational L&D time that we actually invest on those guys because they're on a third party or on a full FTAs? Because we think that they're only for a year, 2 year, 3 years, so we just want to extract value. So the whole approach is value exploitation from them. But if you actually invest on them, going forward, they will be in a position to give more time to you compared to any other person. So that is very important. With the unique skill set that people are going to have, they will choose whom to give that service to. And if we are able to invest in them, and if we are able to grow along with them, and we are able to help them to become more capable, and if we are able to invest on their future readiness, they would actually work with you more closely. So in terms of the career planning, it's a very different way. You need to become a full organization, and that person would choose whether he wants to build a career with you. I think that's how large part of the workforce would be looking at. I will
Also,
be sounding radical, but I think that's how I see it going forward in the next 5 to 7 years.
Also, the other thing which I would like to highlight here is when you talk about flexible workforce, right? See, there are a section of population who actually get out of the working, the stream for various reasons. For example, you have women who, come out of the work stream as soon as they have a baby, etc. Now, how do you bring them back into the workforce? How do you bring them back? You can probably give them flexible timings. You can ask them to work 3 or 4 days a week. It depends. So that is the flexibility that you can introduce in your policies, and that will help those people to merge back to the workforce in a few years. So probably, for say 3 years or 4 years, depending upon what the company wants to define as policies, they can give that flexibility to those people, and then subsequently bring them back into the workforce in a continuous manner. So what we term as flexibility and flexible working hours, etc., is completely fluid. It depends on organization to organization how they want to define this. So it is not necessary that it's always going to be a work from home, or it's always going to be a gig worker. And even if it's a gig worker, that is fine. A person who is your permanent employee can adopt that method of employment for a few years and again come back into the mainstream. So it's completely, I think, very fluid and very definable.
Sure. Great. So the next question is from Bhavya, and this question is directed towards Mr. Sudhakar. So she is asking, when organizations are all gearing up for a mobile workforce and so much flexibility given to employees, how do you address challenges like succession planning, cross-functional team functioning, and building organization culture?
So it depends upon how we defining the mobile workforce. See, if you are talking about full-time employees, it has a totally different connotation. If you are talking about people who are on a tenured work, it has a different connotation. If you are talking about people who are part-time workers, it has a different. If there are some people who are coming only for a specific project, for a part of a project with a very specialized skill set, it has a different connotation. So it depends upon how we define the whole mobile manpower or the workforce. So what is important here is, irrespective of the kind of workforce that you're talking about in terms of the categorization, what is most important is, what does the organization want for the future? Who would meet the requirements of the organization going forward? I think the organization will continue to invest. So that's a very major mindset that the leaders and the HR teams would have going forward, is they would not see a full-time worker very different from a part-time or a gig worker or whatever. I think that mindset change is going to be very important. And today, if you really look at so much of, in fact, I'm just glad that Srivijay talked about it. Is, if you look at the opportunity for second careers for women who have left jobs for family reasons, this is a huge skill set that is lying untapped at all in the country, and globally it should be happening, I'm pretty sure. How do we actually make use of that particular opportunity and bring it to the fore? The succession planning is not a big deal if you really look at, you're clear about what you want, and you are not preoccupied with the kind of categorization of employee workforce that you tend to give today. Because so long as we are outcome focused, it doesn't make a difference about what kind of role categorization the person is in. So long as outcome is happening, and so long as the person is able to deliver value to for the future, you will continue to look at them as part of your succession planning exercise. Today, normally, some of the organizations we look at is saying, okay, if the guy is not there with me for 3 to 5 years, I will not consider him for my talent team. If he doesn't have ratings of so many years, success ratings, I will not put them into the part of this. I think all those things would change. You would go by your judgment about whether this person can contribute to your outcome in a defined manner, and whether the person has a capability for today, and whether the person is investing on building the capabilities for the future. That's all what you look at. The qualification, the experience, the ratings do not matter at all going forward. I think that's very important. It's all about meaning making. It's all about centrality. It's all about sense of purpose. It's all about trying to do things together for the larger purpose of the society and for the organization and for the country. I think that's what will become much more important than these categorization issues, in my view.
So there is another question that is being asked by Bhavya. She's asking, we are also talking about customizing HR to individual employee level. So what are some important ways to understand every individual's priority and address it appropriately to retain your top talent in the organization?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting question. I think this is a very important area that HR going forward will be spending a lot of time in. I think that's where you require a lot of data about the employee, and that's where technology can help you capture the data and give the data back to you in an organized manner, in a structured manner. See, for instance, we were talking about the interest groups. For instance, somebody, again, if you do the profiling of the employees and see what is required. Suppose I have a small 3-year-old child. Now, as a parent, how do I handle? If I have a adolescent child, how do I handle? Both are parenting related issues. But what kind of capabilities, life skills that I need to give to that employee, which will make that person manage his off work time in a more effective and productive manner, and where he also derives some sense of satisfaction and comfort. So a lot of these things is very important. So extending it to the spouse, extending to the parents of the boy or the girl, and ensuring that the siblings are put into this ecosystem. So it's a very, very important investment that we need to do. So one of the key things that would happen going forward is that that customization and possibly similar interest groups or similar requirement groups will be brought together, and interventions will be designed for that. So like the way we do in marketing, we need to do a lot of micro segmentation of employees today. That's why I was talking about the psychographic and the sociographic profiling of employees. We only do the performance appraisal data based, or their career ambition, interest point of view, those are vacancy related. We work backwards, but actually we'll now need to move forward from the employee side. I think that is a major shift that would happen. And if we are able to do this very successfully using technology, we'll create such a huge competitive advantage that others will find it very difficult to emulate. So I think that's a very, very important question Bhavna has asked. And I think it is a very, very major area where the management time of the leaders as well as HR team need to go in going forward. And that's where technology will come handy to you. Because as you collect so much of variables, multi-variable management becomes very difficult. And that's where technology will help you to handle it.
Sure.
Yeah. In
Shreya,
addition, just one more point I wanted to add here is like Sudhakar mentioned earlier. See, increasingly for example, the career aspirations of an employee, the career pathing of an employee becomes his responsibility, no longer the organization's responsibility. So, it is basically every individual has to think for himself what he needs to do in the organization, and then the organization enable him to achieve those things. And that's where, like what Mr. Sudhakar said, that technology plays a very important and critical role. It will actually give you a lot of insights about how the individual is doing in the organization. So it is not so difficult to actually customize HR for an employee, because a lot of it is something which he's going to highlight himself, and a lot of it is technology going to help the HR customize it for him.
sure. Thank you so much. And with this question and answer session, we are going to wrap up today's webcast. We have many more questions coming in, which I would request our speakers to take offline. Once again, we thank you thank you for attending this webcast, and our today's webcast partner Oracle, and our speakers for this webcast, and sharing invaluable information that they have shared. Meanwhile, you can provide your feedback in the survey link provided in the section because your input matters. Stay tuned for many more such exciting sessions. That concludes today's webcast. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Srija.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sudhakar.
Thanks.